All right, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing another Game of Thrones video leading up to the second episode for Game of Thrones Season 8. In this one, we'll be doing our first Q&A for this week, giving our thoughts first on whether or not we think that Jon could win the Game of Thrones. Alright, man, and spoiler warning, if you guys did not get a chance to see the premiere episode for Game of Thrones Season 8 last night, a pretty good premiere from what I'm seeing from all of the comments from you guys that you enjoyed the premiere episode, and that pretty much nobody was let down. There was a few people who said, oh, boring, boring premiere, that kind of thing, but I think everybody kind of understands we're getting set up for the last season, the last 6 episodes. We have 5 left after that first one, and so, we're going to see some awesome battles. They're coming, and the way Game of Thrones usually does it is they have, certain episodes like Battle of the Bastards where it's sort of like the whole battle happens in one episode, right? Like, instead of having it kind of spread out over a few episodes, you have things build, you have the character interactions and the things that happened prior, and then you have these big episodes where all of a sudden you get to see all the action at once. So for those of you guys who are looking for that, hang in there, stay tuned, because I think in a couple more episodes, we will likely see that. And that's what I'm thinking. Episode 3 and 4, I'm thinking, will be the big battle with the White Walkers and Winterfell. I mean, I don't know which one it's going to be, if it is 3 or 4. Could be either. But that's kind of what I'm thinking for as far as what we'll see. So I thought this was a good one to go ahead and start things off with this first Q&A for this week after the premiere episode for episode 2. And it's whether or not we think that Jon Snow could win, or Jon Targaryen, or Jon Stark, depending on how you want to look at it. I guess Targaryen right now would make the most sense. Will win the Game of Thrones in the end. So Pauk Krstash said, if Jon Snow doesn't die, we ride. So he wants to see Jon be killed. So I think that out of all the characters in Game of Thrones, as of right now, for the ones that are still alive, I think that Jon is probably the most honorable of them all. He's probably a fan favorite for the series, at least for me. He's probably, there are certain characters that are more entertaining, like Tyrion's more entertaining. But I think that if there's one character we could pick to kind of have a good guy type of victorious ending and a happy ending, that if Jon was to win the Game of Thrones at the very end, and maybe Daenerys, maybe she falls during the battle, and she dies during either the battle with the Night's King or the battle with Cersei at the end, maybe, whichever way it goes, if Jon is still alive in the end and he rules, that'd be a cool way for the series to end. I think a lot of people would like to see them both be alive in the end. Then you have kind of your king and queen type of thing with Jon sort of at the now that he knows that he's a Targaryen at the helm, or the one who's kind of sitting on the throne more prominently. It's also possible that Jon gets killed off and Daenerys is still there. But in the premiere episode, and the way things are kind of shaping up, it sort of treated Daenerys like she was somewhat of like she was not as, how do I say this, as innocent or as admirable as someone, or honorable as someone like Jon. That Jon was kind of is kind of the one that everybody wants to see. And even the people of the North are kind of disappointed that he's not King of the North anymore, because that's what they wanted. But of course, they're all going to find out pretty soon that he's going to be king of everything, basically, by right anyway, as Stannis the Manus would say, right? By right. So, will he win, though? I mean, this is Game of Thrones, so I think that, in terms of predictions for the end, and I'm not privy to spoilers, and I think that they've locked them up. I don't see anything. Like, when I'm looking around and I'm seeing comments and stuff, I don't see any spoilers. So that's really good. And I'm not used to that. I'm used to everybody knows who's going to die, which episode when, and then they're gonna know who's going to win in the end. So I'm happy to see for Game of Thrones that that's not out there right now from what I've seen. So that's pretty good. So will he be the one to win the Game of Thrones? That's what I think everybody would pretty much like. Maybe they'd like to see him and Daenerys win and them two be surviving at the end, or they'd like to see him win because some people don't like Daenerys and then maybe she'd be killed off during the battles here. But that's kind of the happy ending type of approach for Game of Thrones. And we've been told many times, if you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention. So it's hard to say in the very end if Jon will be the one who sits on the Iron Throne. But I almost feel like if that was to happen, it would be too predictable. Like it would be too kind of easy to see that everybody would want that, and then they do what everybody wants. I do think that coming up pretty soon here, we have a lot of surviving characters right now that are still around from the first season and from the first few seasons. And so certainly some of them have to be killed off before this is all said and done. They can't all be alive when the series ends. So personally, I hope to see Jon and Daenerys win and defeat the Night's King and then defeat Cersei afterwards, because it looks like that's what they're going to have to do, that Cersei is not going to play ball at all. Her and Euron are going to do their thing. It just feels like not in this series, doesn't it? It feels like this is a series where that's not the way things go. Things are never that simple, and they don't end up the way you'd expect them to. I can't make up my mind in terms of predictions on who it is that's going to be alive at the end, because it could be somebody like maybe a lot of the characters are killed. Maybe Cersei's killed, Euron's killed, Jon and Daenerys are both killed off. And then who's the one who ends up on the throne at the end? Like maybe it'd be somebody like Sansa or somebody like that, or somebody that you just would not expect to see there, something like that. So I hope that we do see Jon still alive at the end of the series, sitting on the Iron Throne, or maybe they abolish the throne and they do like a democratic system or something where you have like a bunch of people who come together and make decisions or something. But man, leave your comments below. Let me know where you guys are at with this one and what you think. Do you think Jon could win in the end, or do you think that it'll be somebody else? And if so, who is it? And leave your comments below. Is there anyone who thinks that maybe Cersei's going to win? Right? So I certainly hope not, but you never know. It is Game of Thrones. Rannier Louzada says, is Theon going to join the Starks by himself? Without his sister, I'm confused. So yeah, it looks like she's going to go take the Iron Islands, which is a good idea, because if she can take them back, then the people there, if they have to evacuate, if they lose the Battle of Winterfell, it gives the people somewhere to run to at least. So at least they have somewhere to go, if they have to. Now, can the dead cross the sea? They would say probably not. I tend to think they probably could find a way to do it, ice bridge or something. I don't know. Dragon, blue dragon, ice bridge, or I don't know how they could cross it. But I tend to think that the dead would kind of find a way to cross it if they really wanted to, because they found a way to get through the ice wall, which a lot of us thought would basically never happen. Yeah, it's a good plan. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's going to be cool to see Theon join the others to fight. And I loved what they did with Theon in the first episode. He got to redeem himself because he used to be quite cowardly. Marsha from Trinidad says, I'm curious to see why Drogon was staring down Jon during the kiss. That was interesting. And then somebody replied afterwards saying that their dog does the same thing when they kiss their husband or significant other. So yeah, it's kind of one of those type of things, I think. And it almost looked to me like the Drogon or the dragon was happy when he saw it, because to me, when I saw the dragon's face, it's hard to read the dragon's face, it's a freaking dragon, but I just got the sense like, oh, he thinks it's cute, right? It's just fun. So I don't know, but also, of course, Jon being Targaryen, he's part of the family, so they like each other, and they do, I would think, grow a pretty strong connection between each other over time, right? Simba Tre says, am I the only one who can't stand Daenerys because she's so arrogant, hot-headed, way too quick on the trigger, and just a bitch? I agree with Sansa. Daenerys is not fit to be queen of the North or the Seven Kingdoms. She will just be like her bloodline, the Mad King. So he's predicting that if Daenerys is to win, she'll turn into the Mad King eventually, and so he's voting for King Jon, what he would want to see. So yeah, maybe someone else like Sansa after the end. So that's a good comment, and I agree with on some points. I don't think Daenerys is that bad. I don't hate Daenerys, but I do think Jon is probably a little bit more favorable for most people after seeing the premiere for what everybody would want, most likely. Brian Reynolds says that scream from Ned Umber, wight, was freaking bone chilling. So that's true. When he kind of woke up or whatever, he came to. That was very bone chilling for sure. I like that one. That was scary. Brian Atcham says, how crazy is it that Game of Thrones has more Season 1 characters left alive than The Walking Dead does last season? So we got to include some, questions from you guys for Walking Dead, right? It's gonna come in here somewhere, right? With the channel doing so many videos for Walking Dead over the years, obviously. Yeah, man, it's crazy to think that, there was a point in time where Game of Thrones was viewed as the series that nobody is safe and they kill off absolutely anybody. But that's kind of switched now to where, The Walking Dead has killed off, so many characters from the early seasons, like even more than Game of Thrones has. But I think that by the time the series is over, Game of Thrones will catch up quite a bit. I think that we're going to see quite a few characters be killed off. And in the last episode, episode 6, there probably won't be that many left that are actually still alive in the very end. But it is kind of cool to see that Walking Dead has kind of become that series where, when you look back on it, they killed off even more of their early survivor characters than Game of Thrones did, which is kind of surprising because it sort of used to be looked at as the opposite. Vegas Driftin says, it's satisfying that Game of Thrones will have 8 seasons. It fits like it would have been 7 seasons or 6. It wouldn't seem right. Well, really, if you think about it, it's 8 seasons, but they really could have filled it out more if they wanted to. If they wanted to do 9 or 10 seasons, they could have stretched it. If you look at season 7, there's a lot of big things that happen in 7 that if they slowed that pacing down and they extended out the episodes and added in some other stuff, they really could have made season 7 probably 2 or 3 seasons. And then this season right here, I'm sure they could probably stretch it out further. Battle of the Bastards with the episode after the Winds of Winter, they could have stretched out Winds of Winter and had it be the next year. They really could have stretched out the series to probably 10 or 11 seasons with the same amount of content and just added in some other filler and other stuff if they really wanted to. But I think a lot of people are happy that they didn't, and they're happy that the 8th season will be the final season of Game of Thrones. One thing it's good for is in terms of a collection, right, as a series collection. When this series is done, it's going to be one that everybody's going to want to have a copy of this series because it's so epic and it's something that you can, like if you're on vacation or something, you have some time, you want to binge watch a show. Game of Thrones is one where when this is all said and done, it's going to be like one of the most bingeable shows ever. Like you can get it, you can watch it, and it's epic all the way through. You're not skipping a whole lot of stuff. You might skip a few things here and there, but like maybe some of the earlier season stuff, maybe some of that you might skip a little bit. But it's got so much stuff in it that's such high quality. Definitely seasons like 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's not a whole lot of stuff you probably want to skip from those seasons. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. And 8 seasons is a good run for Game of Thrones. We'll do a couple more for today. Brian Atcham says, and the books are still not out. Yeah, that's true. This is a weird one for Game of Thrones in that the series ended before the book series did in terms of the releases. But if you look at the books and if you read them through, they are a lot more, there's a lot more to them than what they included in the show. There's more characters. There's other important characters. There's just, the show is like a sort of I like to look at it as a streamlined version of the books. At the beginning, it seemed like it might be somewhat the same, like in terms of the depth. But after about season, I want to say 4 or 5, they started to pick up the pacing a little bit of Game of Thrones and starting to omit, certain characters and certain things that were happening in the books to sort of streamline it a bit more for the audience. And, I'm glad they did that. It would have been cool to see more seasons of Game of Thrones if they could have stretched it out more and included more stuff. But it's going to be its own interpretation, and it's going to likely have a different ending than the books will, just because it's done first. And so the books have to kind of go a different direction, I think, afterwards. It sort of changes things for the books. Adriana Amato says, you didn't talk about Bronn. So I did a little bit in the predictions video for episode 2, and that is, of course, that Cersei has sent him out to kill, the other Lannisters, to kill her brothers. Do I think that he'll do it? No, I don't think so. I don't think he'll kill either Tyrion or Jaime. I think he likes them both, especially not Tyrion. I don't think he's going to do it, but it will backfire, and he will tell Tyrion and tell Jaime that what she's doing, and that she's out for them. So they're going to know that after they're done with the Night's King, if they survive, they still have to look out for her because she's going to want them dead even afterwards. Toby TV official says Jaime was like, oh shit, the kid is still alive. Jaime goes back to King's Landing. After all the people that he's going to run into that hate him, I wouldn't be surprised if after he gets a stern talking to from Daenerys and the others, he just wants to go back because everybody's going to hate his freaking guts. And, like everywhere he turns, everyone's going to hate him. So he's doing the right thing. But the thing is that, everybody at this point doesn't like him. So, I think my light's going out here. So let's wrap it up since that's happening. Nicole Krstash says, Jon's still the same person. I don't think it's going to change that much. You're acting like his whole personality is going to change because he's found out he's a Targaryen now. Well, Jon can handle it well. He was, King of the North, I suppose. They named him that. So, I don't think his behavior himself is going to change all that much. But, the way people address him is going to change. It changes the situation. It changes his relationship a bit with Daenerys. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. We'll have to see how it goes. But things are going to change, even if he doesn't really change himself. And then last one, Dylan Schneider actually says, it's about to get real. That dead kid was effed up, man. So, that was scary. And then he sort of comes alive out of nowhere. And that's one thing about the White Walkers is they are very, very scary. So it's going to be cool to see how things go with the end for that. That'll be it for today's video, guys. If you didn't see my predictions for Episode 2, I'll have it in the end-screen videos as well as my review for the premiere episode for Game of Thrones Season 8. Very exciting stuff, and I'll see you guys again soon for another video. Leave your other questions below for further Q&As for this week. It's Trev, and I'm saying peace. Later, guys. See you soon.